seminar. So we're going to talk about how to, save property tax. First, you need to know, if your property tax is accurate. It's one of the most significant tax for many families, homeowners. It's calculated by the local government and generally assessed using a mass appraisal technique. So it's not actually, some people get confused thinking that it's actually your sales price. It is not, okay? In Texas, generally is about 10 to 15% lower than your sales value because it's a non-disclosure state. The appraisal district doesn't have time to go into each transaction and look at how much your property is sold for. So it's not your sales price, but it is based on the value of your property around the time of January 1st of that tax year. So what that means is that the property tax is, you get your property tax bill usually in October. So this month you should receive your 2020 notice of appraised value. So that value is you're going to pay that tax towards the end of this year or beginning of next year. That's for 2020. And it's based on the value of your property of January 1st, 2020, okay? That's a very important date. When you appeal your property value, you're going to look at property value 6 months around January 1st. So you're going to look at, so we're going to look at, November of 2019 to October of 2019, the last 3 months of the year and the first 3 months of 2020 to look at to determine what the assessed value of your property is. So property tax are the only tax that can be appealed. And we encourage you to appeal if you think they overcharge you on the property tax, the assessed value of your property. Go ahead and appeal. You're not going to be put on the blacklist, and they're not going to punish you because you appeal your value. So every year you have a chance to lower your property value, okay? So that's certainly one way you can reduce your property value. So when we talk about your property tax, usually it's made up of 3 major components. The first one is the address, your property address, where the city is. So the city will assess a tax based on the city. So for example, there's a 1234 Main Street in McKinney. So it is part of McKinney City. So the city would assess city tax from McKinney, and it's part of the county, right? So it's either Collin County, sometimes, like Frisco, some area is Denton County. So the second one is the county tax. The third one is a major component of the property tax is the independent school district your property is a part of. That's over half of your property value. So you, based on where your house is located, which school district, sometimes even on the same street, if the independent school district line cross that street, it can be part of 2 different school districts. Therefore, the tax rate can be different. So when you look at your property tax assessed value, first, the easiest way to check is whether the size is correct, right? Sometimes the builder reported different size than what's on the tax record. So if your house, for example, is a 3,300 square foot, and for some reason on the tax record it says 3,500 square foot, that's obviously something you can, correct right away and lower your property tax, because that's 200 square foot that they are assessing tax that your size is not. Of course, it's an honorary system. If they undertax your size of the property. I wouldn't, recommend appeal it, but it's up to you whether you want to correct that or not. Sometimes they think, for some reason, if there's an older building, sometimes they could mistake you have 3 garage versus you actually have 2 garage. So all those things can be easily corrected and therefore lower your property tax. And where can you see your notice and how it's assessed for each county, the appraisal district where your tax is based. For example, for the example we cited, the 1234 Main Street is in Collin County in McKinney. So you're going to go to Collin County Central Appraisal District and you can do property search. So each county is similar. You can always search your property by, typically you might not know the property ID or the other information, but you can easily search by owner name, your last name, first name, or property address. So once you type in those information, you should be able to see all the tax record associated with that property. We just moved. Sometimes it takes time for the appraisal district to process your information. So we moved in August this year. And when I'm searching for my new property, it's still showing the previous sellers as the owners. So that's something you want to make sure that is correct. And that's something very easy. You can do it yourself, right? I want to also point out there is lots of absentee owners, meaning that people who bought investment properties and they're not here. So you have to make sure that you pay tax, of course, and you have to make sure they have your correct mailing address. If you don't file your correct mailing address, by default, they're going to send it to the property. So you could potentially miss the property tax payment, which is something you don't want to do, right? You don't want to owe property tax because they can actually foreclose on you. So that's something you have to check to make sure they have the correct address, correct information, so that you can make sure your property tax is assessed correctly. Let's go to the next slide. So property tax exemptions, there's many property tax exemptions, and the most common one is the homestead exemption, right? Meaning that at one point, each person is entitled to one primary residence. And how does it qualify as your homestead? It is the address showing on your driver's license, okay? Sometimes if you just move like us, we have 30 days to update the address on our driver's license. If you want to, typically, so you qualify for homestead exemption, starting, meaning if you move into this primary residence on January 1st. So for myself, again, we moved in August, right? So I cannot apply for homestead exemption on this house until next year because, I'm going to qualify for 2021 homestead exemption, right? So because you have to be in that primary residence as of January 1st. You have to live in that property to claim homestead, okay? But that is one thing that you just need to do it yourself. You can do it yourself. It's a 4-page form from Collin County, and Denton County is about the same. And it will ask you, who owns the property. And if a husband and wife, each person have 50%, right? And for the exemptions, this is one of the big exemptions for primary residence because it's typically reducing about $25,000 off your assessed value from the independent school district. And some apply a percentage. So in addition to homestead exemption reduction, it also provides a ceiling how much they can increase your property tax next year. So once you file the homestead for this year, the next year's assessed value cannot increase over 10% after you apply for homestead. For example, so if this property assessed value is 300,000, next year, after you file the homestead, next year's assessed value cannot, in this example, exceed 330,000, right? So that also protect, lower your tax base. So that's one thing that everybody probably, if you're a homeowner, you can apply. You just need to apply once and they would, follow you as long as that's your primary residence. Also, one thing, sometimes people get busy. They forgot, like when I first moved, I forgot to file the homestead in that year. You can actually claim back 2 years. So for example, if I moved in 2018 and I qualified for 2019 homestead, but I forgot to file it in 2019. The deadline is before May 1st, typically. So if I didn't file it in May 1st, 2019, I can file it for 2020 before May 1st, and I will claim back what I missed in 2019. And you can do that by mailing the homestead exemption form. You can download from each central appraisal district. It's a free form. You can download, you can mail it to the central appraisal district. You can drop it off during the office hours. And there's other exemptions that is pretty, significant if you qualify. If you have one of the homeowners is over 65, they have the seniors homestead exemption. They also have disabled homestead exemption, disabled veterans. 100% disabled veterans exemption is a huge property tax exemption as well. And also some of the appraisal district also look at if you have energy efficient features of your house. So all these things you can go to the appraisal district website and see what you qualify. And when you're actually filling up the exemption form, all these options that you can choose. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this is a sample of homestead exemption form from Collin County Appraisal District. And it's pretty self-explanatory, and each homeowner have to fill out the application, and they actually have an explanation of each section, what to put in if you're not sure how to answer this form. Unfortunately, they don't have in other languages, so but it is a very important form you can complete yourself and or ask somebody to help you. Important dates and deadlines. Typically, October is the time in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex you will receive your property tax invoice. A lot of times we have put property tax as part of our mortgage. So you're going to receive your appraised value notice. You don't have to pay, right? Because your mortgage already covered that. But if you are paying yourself, make sure you pay it on time. You should be receiving it this month. You should already receive it because this is the last day of the month. Exemptions, I don't think I received, I don't think they send this postcard anymore. I may have received it, but if you don't receive it, you can go to the website of that appraisal district to download the exemption form. So like I said, the value established of January 1st of that tax year, and they always collect tax for the previous year, right? So in this is the end of 2020, we're going to pay property tax for 2020 towards the last month of this year or the beginning of 2021. And appraisal district will also mail you the notice of next year's appraised value. That is the base you can apply for appeal, like I mentioned in the first section. So each appraisal district have a different deadline for appeal. Typically, it has been May 15th. This year, because of COVID, it actually was extended to June 15th because, you know, lots of people are business being impacted. But nevertheless, typically it's May 15th that you can submit your appeal notice to protest the value of your property tax. And if May 15th is the deadline, usually you will hear people, you can go have informal protests before the deadline. You can actually, you know, call the appraisal district, have an informal talk while you're appealing. But afterwards, after that deadline, you typically they will have in person. I don't know how this year is handled because of COVID. They were closed for a period of time, but I heard that you know, lots of things are done on the telephone, and just because of the COVID situation. And August 31st is the last day for property owners to give written notice of correct mailing address. Like I said, if you're if you don't live here and you want to make sure that you are getting the property tax notice, you know, this is the deadline for you. For property tax appeal, typically they're looking at, you know, why do you think they assess a higher value than your current value? This one you can ask a real estate agent to help you to run the comps of the subdivision your houses are in. But remember that the value is around January 1st of the tax year. So you're not going to run the comps. For example, you got your notice in April, and in May, you're looking to appeal. You're not going to run the value for last 6 months sales. You're going to look at, like I said, 6 months around January 1st, that property value. Some of the new constructions, they don't, the appraisal district, it's hard for them to determine because they just use their trend and mass calculation to look at this year, this area have a, you know, 3 to 4% increase in the property value. So they're going to apply that percentage over in that subdivision. So they don't look at each individual properties. Unless you disclose your value, they wouldn't know. So for example, if a new construction is sold 350,000 and they look at the trend for the overall price for that property and they assess your value is 400,000. The easiest way, of course, is just send over your closing document telling them my sales price is 350,000, right? And they're always going to go with your sales value. So if your sales value is lower than your assessed value, go ahead and do that. That would lower your property tax already because they have to base on the recent sales value. There's also other ways to show that your property is inferior than the general area. For example, if you know that in your subdivision, most of your neighbors have granite countertop, and there's, you know, most of the houses for some reason have better appliances than you. You can provide proof. Typically, you can just take pictures, say that, you know, I just have the plain, you know, plastic, you know, ceramic flooring. The other people have wood floors. I have, you know, just regular countertop. So this is, you know, what happened. And all this proof are the picture around, again, January 1st. So you should actually make some pictures around that time because the value is around that time. And if you have it's very typical here, we have hail damage, right? So if your house is, the roof is hit by hail and in January, you haven't replaced your roof yet. That's another example saying that, you know, my roof needs to be replaced and the estimate is $10,000. So you can actually provide that proof to show that you need to reduce my property value $10,000 because my roof wasn't in working condition. So those are the information you can provide to appeal the property tax information to prove that your house is not that expensive as they assess, is somehow in a worse condition than the general condition of the area. And if you need help, you can always reach out to your real estate professionals for them to run the comps, like I said. But at the same time, you can also, seek a professional help. There's property tax appeal company out there. Of course, you need to do your homework. They typically charge, if they're able to help you save property tax, they charge a percentage of what they save. So they shouldn't be upfront for any legit property appeal companies. They shouldn't be a upfront charge for their service. Okay, so here are the major appraisal district contact information in Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm in Collin County. Of course, we have Denton, Rockwall, Dallas, Kaufman, and Tarrant are the major ones. Typically, their address is just the county name followed by the CAD, which stands for Central Appraised District. So you can go on there. There's lots of great information for question and answer and deadlines, forms. They're all free, so you shouldn't pay for all this kind of service. Okay, so to sum up, we have, we talk about the property appeals, but so there's 3 ways you can lower your property tax. First, make sure that your property tax information, property information are correct, and you are receiving your notice on the regular basis, timely basis. Secondly, you can file your homestead exemption, your eligible exemptions. And thirdly, you can appeal, it doesn't matter, even if if they lower a few $1,000s, it's a few $1,000s baseline that you're keeping for the, they use this year's base. Next year, if you have homestead exemption, they can't go up, more than 10%. So that's a baseline you already lowered. So I encourage you, anytime you felt like they over assess your value, you go appeal. All right. So that's the information we have. Hopefully it's helpful. We are also going to do a step-by-step video how to fill out the the exemption forms. We have. We're going to do question and answer section for anybody who has questions.
Hey, Cecilia.
Yes.
Thanks for thanks for all of this. And I just want to know, is there exemptions applied to new constructions?
No, there's not. There's not. That's actually a great question. I have to let you know that what if you buy new construction, the builder is, if you're when you purchase because the value is the January 1st, right? So for example, if you're closing in August, the house is completed in August, the builder is only paying the lot with unimproved, because in January 1st, the house wasn't built yet. So the builder is actually paying a lot cheaper tax than yours. So when you're doing the closing, because the property tax is prorated, right? So they're going to pay their portion January 1st to August based on a lot lower property tax, and you're going to pay August to the end of the year. But next year, when you get your full property tax bill, for example, if the lot is, unimproved is 150,000, and with the improvement, which is the structure, your actual house, you pay, 400,000. Next year, there's going to be a huge increase in your property tax. There's no exemptions, but there is a clause when you're signing your closing disclosure that if there's a huge difference between the actual tax allocated and the tax bill you receive next year, then you can go back to the seller to collect the portion.
So just check my understanding. So basically, for the new construction, the property tax is just based on the all the values that I paid, right?
Depends on when depends on whether you're buying a completed house and when the house is completed, right? So if the house is completed January 1st already, and if you bought that there shouldn't be too much difference between the assessed value and what the builder pay. But if the house just is a lot, and they just started building this year and didn't get completed in October, there might be a big difference between this year's property tax than 2021. The house is already completed.
Okay, and you mentioned something like energy saving exemptions. If the new construction, I mean, if the house is energy saving, can apply this to lower the property tax.
Yes, this will be something you can talk actually to check with your accountant, because they have a form, based on what kind of features that qualify for exemptions. And there's actually also a federal incentive for energy efficient, solar roof and stuff. There's actually huge incentive, but it's not, you can check with your accountant to see how you can depreciate or apply for those incentives.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cecilia.
Thank you. Okay. So our now it's 12 o'clock. We're going to end our formal section. And if you have any additional questions, or if you want a copy of this presentation, feel free to email us or call us. We're here to help you, to educate you, provide useful information so that you can lower your property tax, at the same time enjoy, the property you live in. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.